Hey guys, and welcome to the latest in the SleepyTalk podcast. Got a really, really special guest today, and it's that guy. He's back.
Way. I don't know, that's special.
Ryan.
Yeah. Well,
Just
no,
a
we
faint Ryan in the background there. I love it.
Ryan Treadsmacko. No, fantastic episode coming up today because we have the one and the only Mr. Stitch Films. So anyway, the way this came about was really weird and random. So Ryan sort of hit me up and said, "Oh, my mate who I used to work with is this guy," and I was like, "I used to watch him back in the day. I used to watch his stuff," and thought there's no chance he's coming on this podcast, and well, here he is.
Here I am.
So the first question I've got is, who are you? Who is Mr. Stitch Films?
Who is Mr. Stitch Films? Mr. Stitch Films. So, my name's Anthony Michael Winson, and I have been making films now for 15 years.
It's a long time.
God, that is a long time. But it's only sort of in the last, I'd say, 7, 8 years. I think things have actually become a bit neater. Is that the right word to use? Neater? Just sort of like a bit more polished and professional.
Been putting that graft in, mate, and it's paid
Yeah,
off.
basically. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously links will be in the description, but there's some fantastic thrillers and horrors over on that channel. Back in the day, they were incredible, and like I said, I've watched your 1970s recent one, and M. Night Shyamalan needs to sort of bow down to those twists.
Cry of the Magpie.
Yeah. It's just no, really good. And so, realistically, what kind of inspired you to do it? Was it influences from childhood? Was it, let me know.
Filmmaking, or sort of like each film, or
So if we do sort of the filmmaking and the genre that you've kind of sort of narrowed in on.
okay. I mean, horror has sort of always been my go-to genre ever since I was a kid. I was like this really weird kid that was obsessed with horror films, thanks to like my older brother. Yeah, he was always a big horror fan as well, so I just used to watch horror films with him when mum and dad were like, "Look after Anne, it's popping in Nightmare on Elm Street," you know. Not the best film to be watching when you're 5 years old, but I think So I mean, I've always grown up watching it. It's just always been my go-to thing to watch. I don't know. It's just something. I'll tell you one thing though that's annoying is because I've been watching horror from such a young age, and I'm quite desensitized to it. So nothing really scares me anymore. Like, it hasn't for years.
Yeah.
But yeah, really, it's thanks to my eldest brother.
Fair enough. So does your older brother do anything similar to what you do, or is it just run-of-the-mill guy?
Well, he's always liked a bit of writing. Okay. He hasn't ever done anything more really with it. I remember when I was really young, he used to like writing short horror stories and things like that. And I think in recent years he's been doing a bit of writing, but again, he's never actually sort of put it out there for publication or anything like that. And I keep trying to get him to write me a script or a story for me to collab with him.
Mm.
As of yet, no, nothing.
It's
Well,
quite a film buff, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
There's pretty much nothing that I can recall ever coming up in discussion that he hadn't already seen, and was always firing recommendations for movies to watch. So I could imagine with the amount he's consumed, he probably have some good ideas, like sort of influenced by the many he's watched staring around. Jump on it, John. Yeah, I'll start nagging him as well.
he is a good writer. I've read some of his stuff and it is good. I think it's just he lacks motivation to actually sometimes put pen to paper, and I don't know. I've asked him for years to write me something. So just I thought it'd be a really cool sort of like brother duo team, but you know,
no, just like
Yeah,
an
there's still
indie
time.
Russo brothers.
yeah.
There's still time.
Yeah, there's always
Still
time.
time.
So you've done quite a few films, quite a lot. But have you done anything else in film other than sort of directing and creating these things? I was moving on to sort of like a next one. I've seen on the IMDb interwebs that you actually acted at some point.
No, well, I'm trying to think now. I've never officially done any acting. I think I've been an extra.
Yeah.
I think in someone's film, but acting it's not really my forte. I get very self-conscious in front of the camera.
He likes to give the orders.
Yes.
It's a bit disappointing that though, because I noticed your character was called Terrorist 5.
Yes. That was an experience and a half. That was. It was an actor that I know. He at the time he'd been for a few years putting in the graft to make this action film because he was by nature like a stunt guy and an actor, and so he just sort of like wanted to make this big elaborate action film, and he asked me if I wanted to go on and be this terrorist guy. And I'll tell you what, it was the most, because there's like all these like really buff guys all from like the Navy sort of background, you know, they're all stunt guys as well, and I was like, they lent me some kit to wear, and I just remember walking around all day unable to button up my trousers because I was a little heavier than what these guys were.
Didn't have
I had to die with. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, but I remember being so nervous about this blink and you'll miss it moment of literally coming out with a gun, firing off a couple of rounds, and then they shoot me and I die. You can't even see my face. I just remember absolutely crapping myself. Like, am I going to mess this up? Am I going to like step on the wrong mark? Am I going to fall at the wrong time? You know, it was so yeah. Acting's not for me.
Would you consider have you done any like theatre type writing?
Not theatre, no.
Would it be something you consider? Is it not really for you?
I wouldn't say that. I would probably not really for me. I mean, I know a few theatre actors, but yeah, it's. I think it's quite difficult because you have to write for a stage, and you've got to know the technicality of stage work and stuff like that, which I know nothing about.
Yeah, right, okay. So it's just another learning curve. Really.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't need to spread yourself so thin.
Yeah.
What inspired you to, more so that is it just sitting around with your brother that inspired you into doing this, making the kind of films that you do in the genre that you do, or do you have any? I'm just trying to find out if it's a reflection of your beliefs on the supernatural or the spiritual at all.
Oh, right, yeah. So basically, I mean, my go-to sort of subgenre for horror is ghosts and haunted houses and things like that, and that is sort of like my go-to. If I can, I like to try and make those types of films because I'm a big believer in supernatural, like ghosts and things like that, and I just find it to be a much creepier style of film to make. And it also, I always say that when it comes to like ghost films and things like that, a lot of the scares and stuff come in the editing.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah,
So you're on set and you do the filming, but it's not scary. You know, it's all technical
yeah.
until you sit down in the editing studio and you start adding in the sound effects and the music, and then you just that's when you start getting excited. Like, oh, this is coming together. This is starting to feel creepy. This is exciting.
It must be quite hard to create. I mean, I've recently doing some basic editing, and I've found how a simple cut and zoom in on an object can create like humor. But I
Yeah,
can't fathom how you would like, with the level of knowledge I've got, like I couldn't even comprehend how you would, in your faces, that tension, that sort of,
Suspense.
yeah, but with that edge of fear. I don't know if fear is the quite right word to use, but it's something more of a creepier sensation I feel when watching your stuff. I just wouldn't know how to even go about creating that as you do with yours.
I think a lot of the time it's down to the music. I think if you added like comical music to a lot of my films, you'd be like, oh shit, this probably works better as a comedy than does a horror. Uh,
I might give that a go now. You suggested it. Sounds like it could be fun.
get some Laurel and Hardy soundtrack
Uh,
on to my horrors. You'd be like, so this
yeah.
is the true. This is what this film is meant to be.
Mm.
Honestly, when a lot of the stuff it comes down to editing, and I mean there is sort of the technicality of when you're actually filming it that does help, like knowing how long to linger with the camera before cutting away or following
Mm.
actors. Try and create that tension, drawing scenes out for the suspense for the audience. But I
Mm.
think a lot of it is also down to the actual editing, music, sound effects, and things like that.
No. Okay, I have a lot of respect for your work now that I always did. I was always amazed that like I know this guy and he can make these films and stuff. Like that was something so alien to me, in terms of how it got to that the end result. Now I know a little bit about messing around with videos, and it just blows my mind that it has that sort of professional polish to it. Um, that is obviously I understand how roughly how you might get to that, but in my head it seems like such painstaking work, um, to get to something of your quality, and it's just mad to think that like I just know the dude that does it. You know what I mean? I'm watching guys that probably have your level of skill do tutorials on YouTube teaching me how to do basic stuff. So, um, and with the horror genre, I feel it's probably one of the hardest things, particularly for me, because I'm not a massive fan of horrors of any sort of kind. So to keep me sort of wanting to know exactly how things play out in that type of film, and to have me questioning, so like the ending of I'm not going to spoil anything. I know I'm a sucker for spoiling people. I'm not going to spoil it, but the
Especially
ending,
recently.
yeah, we're not getting into it. But yeah, like the ending of the Magpie, Cry of the Magpie,
Oh yeah.
just had me think. I even discussed it with you, and you was like, "You almost got there, man. You almost got there." I like how it sort of just left me open rather than just left me closed in a box at an ending. Like this is what it is, you know.
Hmm.
So yeah, I don't
The
know.
awesome thing about Magpie was that I was lying in bed one night, and I said to Lewis, I was like, I need a new plot. I need a new idea. I want to write something that's a bit different to what I usually do. And he kind of came up with this whole idea of Magpie, basically like the basic skeletons of it. And I was like, oh yeah, I quite like that idea. And then the next day I started writing, and it was the quickest script I've written ever. It was just literally like ideas just flowing. I was like, oh, that's a great idea. Continue writing. Oh, that's a good idea. That's another great idea. I think I wrote it in 3 days.
Jeez.
Yeah.
So that it is incredibly good.
Thank you.
There's just again the twists are perfect as well, without blowing too much smoke. That just the way that it's done, and as Ryan was saying earlier about getting that level of suspense and that level of, and as you were saying how to know when to pan the camera at a certain time and to just the way that it's done and how the way that it's thought out, it kind of like you're like, oh yeah, I get this. Oh no, okay, it might be this, and then it's like, oh no. As soon as you get to that point where you know the ending, it changes.
Yeah.
And then it's that's what I like. But I think I'm the same as Ryan in the fact that horrors don't really interest me, except for sort of like the indie style ones.
Yeah.
That's mainly because of
Less
how
predictable.
saturated. Yeah, it's horror. Hollywood horror, we'll say,
Yeah.
is so saturated and so predictable, and everything is a copy and paste formula. It just has different
Yeah.
actors and a different monster, or a
Yeah.
different, There's only a few sort of horrors that have really like gotten under my skin, and I've spoke about them before. The Insidious #1.
Do you know what? Funny you should mention that, because I remember when Insidious first came out, I went to cinema to see that,
Mm.
and I'm not ashamed to say, I was sat in the cinema, and after the first big scare of that film, I remember sitting there going, "Oh God, that actually got me really bad. That
Mm.
did," and like my heart was pounded. And as the film went on, I was like, "I don't know if I can actually sit here for the rest of this film. I am actually shitting myself."
I'm gonna
Yeah.
have to
And
watch that
honestly,
one.
like at the end of it, by the end of it, I was like, that was the most refreshing installment in horror in like recent history, like memory. When that first came out, it was brilliant.
Yeah, and they've now copied and pasted that formula, and
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, which I was the same. So as soon as I saw the trailer for it, I thought, oh, it's Darth Maul, you know. And then I watched it, and yeah, it did take me back a little bit. Um, so, but this is the great thing about sort of indie directors like yourself is there's always something new and it's always fresh. So you got inspired by an idea and wrote something out in 3 days, and like obviously I'm no one important, but I was impressed with it.
Thank
So
you. I think the good thing about a lot of indie directors is that you haven't got a big name studio behind you telling you what you can and cannot put in your film.
hmm
Because obviously the big studios, all they're interested in is how much money they can make back. So they want that tried and tested formula to any film really.
yeah,
So they're like, we need like this amount of scares, we need this many jump scares because jump scares sell, and especially with the teenage audience, the teenagers want jump scares and things like that. So when it comes to like the more independent people making films, you make a film for how you want to make a film for, and a lot of the times these independent filmmakers make it for the love of that they know how that genre sort of works.
mm.
I think that's like the most recent things. Like, I don't know if you've seen like Hereditary or Midsummer.
I
I
haven't.
mean, I
No.
wasn't
Not myself, no.
I wasn't the biggest fan of Midsummer, but Hereditary was. I remember watching it and thinking to myself, this film just doesn't really have a lot going for it. And by the end of it, I was like, yeah, it was all right. But then I couldn't stop thinking about it, and it was like in a really creepy way. Like it just, I didn't realize how much it actually gets under your skin, and I think that is a big credit to the filmmakers. It was really, really
That's
creepy.
that's probably a very good way to sort of describe what takes me with your films. To be fair, is I think would you? How do you feel about jump scares in your movies? Do you put a lot of effort into those sort of like shocking, scary moments, or not?
I try and steer away from jump scares.
I'm glad you said
I
that
mean,
because I was about to say that I don't feel like the big spike scary movies like that spike of fear doesn't hit as hard as the actual tense moments when I'm watching
Yeah.
your films.
mm,
And obviously that's what Luke was just saying, makes indie films different. But I just wanted to know if that was by design or just a natural thing.
I think because I am probably at the moment I am more a film fan than I am a filmmaker. Like my where I'm at in like being a director and things like that. So I know from personal experiences from reading people's comments that are true horror fans is that they don't like jump scares
Mm.
because you can't base how good a horror film is on how loud your sound system is.
Hmm. Yeah.
That's not a good horror film. So I mean, yeah, I do include a couple of jump scares, but they're not in any way to the scale of what they are in modern horror. Like
Oh,
I'll
it's
They're
try
not the
and
constant.
moments of the film.
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah,
they're not the moments of the film you're gonna talk to other people about when discussing your films. Whereas with a lot of Hollywood horror, as it's now been dubbed, um, is I find it's always the bits that when you came out of the room and looked like that and stuff, rather than sort of defining moments of a film. For all I know, because I don't watch a lot of horror movies, those Hollywood horror films do have something else other than the jump scares to them. But unless you watch the film yourself looking for it, you're never going to hear about it when you're hearing it discussed
no,
between
no,
people that have seen the film.
absolutely.
Mm.
Like with myself, I usually find that when I'm making a jump scare, if I want to put a jump scare in, what I'll try and do is mislead the audience into a fake jump scare. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
like with my film that I've got coming up, there'll be a character will go and like investigate a noise. They don't, but this is just
No spoilers, don't worry.
no. So they'll go in and say investigate a noise, and they'll find something, or something will happen, which it might be a little bit of a jolt, but nothing to make you really jump. So people will be like, "Oh, okay, that was the scare," but the scare is actually still coming.
Hmm.
So when it actually does pay off, it is actual a genuine scare as well. So it's not like you've opened the door and someone's friend stood there and they've gone, "Oh, you've made me jump," and loud music. It is, if I'm going to put a scare in, it's going to be something scary.
Hmm.
I'm not going to fake the audience.
It's like a false sense of security, and then bam.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm. Just in the I get covered. It's the one on Blu-ray's not the haunting of the Baylock residence, is it? It's
no,
just out
that's
of that's just
just
the
the
Baylock
Baylock
residence.
residence.
Yeah, that one. I'm terrible with the names of the characters, but the carer in
Oh yeah,
that, the
Annabelle.
one which, yeah, Annabelle, when um she's going up the stairs, the leader's going up the stairs and she's there, and it's like a little bit of a jump scare because it's
Oh
dark,
yeah,
the power's gone out, and you've got the lighting on her face, so it is proper spooky. But that bit there stands out to me, but not because of the scare. It's just the way that she says, like, okay then, and dismisses her as she goes upstairs.
yeah,
There's something just in that moment where, even though it's just after the jump scare, what I feel would have been a jump scare, anyway, I might be wrong, it might not be. It's the interaction between the two characters that
yeah,
stood out to me, as more shocking,
yeah.
um, sort of supporting that you don't really need, if you can direct things well enough, you don't need for those standout moments to be so shocking and turn the volume up to 11 instantly.
Yeah, no, I mean, like you say, with that moment, it was just meant to sort of be a bit of a, oh, that was a bit of a startle, but
Mm.
it wasn't meant to be like, oh, that's so terrifying. It was just, you know.
Yeah.
But I
When
know that
she
the
sort of dismissed her to go back upstairs, it's the way she said it and looked after her, and watched her as she went upstairs. Got me second guessing her role in the plot. I was like, nah, she's in on whatever's going off, definitely, because of that
yeah,
alone. But turns out it was just obviously me overthinking probably the horror film, or influenced too much by Hollywood horror, because it's kind of predictable that to be the case, I suppose.
yeah. I mean, I'm pretty sure. Have you, Ryan? You've seen my original Haunting of Baylock, haven't you? Residence,
A long time ago, yeah.
the black and white one.
Yeah, I watched it
Yeah.
the other night as well.
Oh, okay, that's good.
Because
So
yeah, carry on. Sorry.
so this is sort of like a bit of a spoiler, but it was just, there's no way of explaining this without spoiling it. It just, because in the original The Haunting of Baylock Residence, Annabelle obviously turns out to be dead. She's a ghost, and she's living in the house. She can't leave, and then there's a lot of smart people online that are like, oh, I knew she was dead. I knew she was dead. Put it in the comments to ruin it for everyone else, which is really annoying. But then,
Mm.
so I thought, when I came to remake it, I was like, do you know what? I'm going to make people believe that she's dead, but then completely flip it, like, haha, you're not so smart, are you? you know?
Yeah, I did have something like, I was like, there's something up with this. I'll be honest with you, I can't recall The Haunting. I must have seen it. I've watched a lot of your stuff over the years, but I can't recall it to mind. But in the newer one, definitely had me just looking for some sort of indication of what is up with this character, because she's not just like what she appears to be. Done very well. Normally, I like to think I'm good at picking up on these things, but again, that's that Hollywood movie thing, innit? You watch enough of the films, you've seen them all, you've seen the same tropes.
Yeah. So
she just ended up being a really stuffy character that you know,
Mm.
with the time she's just set in her own ways.
Yeah.
but it's quite interesting that we've sort of moved on to The Haunting of Baylock anyway, because that was one that I had in my notes. It's just
Okay.
that one actually like 1.3 million views. 1.3 million.
Yeah, that it's crazy.
That
It's
is mad.
well, it all came about a few years ago because it got towards Halloween and the views were just rolling in. I couldn't believe it. It was like thousands a day,
Yeah,
thousands, and then it hit the million mark, and it just seemed to have slowed down. And
but I mean a million still. Wow.
oh yeah,
Like
yeah,
congratulations on hitting a million views on one
Congrats,
video.
bro, mate.
Yeah. I mean thoroughly deserved, but it
thank
just
you.
amazing to see. You know, just 1.3 million people have watched something that you've done, and what
It's the
inspired
trailer,
you to do
isn't
it?
it? Is
Yeah,
it?
no,
Sorry, is it the trailer?
What 1.3
For
million?
yeah.
No, it's the
no,
hour
it's
and
the
10 minutes. It's the full.
it's the actual film.
Ah, the full film. No, I was going to
Yeah.
say there was something. I'll mention it afterwards. Continue. Sorry.
But what sort of inspired you on that film and the way that you've done it? Because obviously there's a formula in there that we need to copy and paste.
I think the thing that did so well is I think that because I wasn't targeting teenagers, and it's funny because when you read the comments from people on that film, a lot of the ones that hate it are the younger audience, and the target audience that I was aiming for was the old generation because I wanted to make a film that was pretty much a throwback to old 60s and 70s horror films, which is why it's in black and white, like The Haunting of Hill House or The Haunting. That was kind of like what I wanted to achieve with the original version of that film. A lot of the characters' names are also names of other horror characters from other horror films of that generation.
Yeah.
So it's like the main character, her name's Patricia Woodhouse, and Woodhouse was the nanny from The Omen. And then you've got Annabelle Blair, and her surname Blair was Linda Blair from The Exorcist.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, no,
something
I said that wrong. The Woodhouse is Rosemary's Baby, and Baylock is the nanny from The Omen.
Right. Yeah. So there's it's more of you hitting nostalgia at the same time
Yes.
as So I mean it's very smart. It's a very nice way to sort of tie it in. But I did enjoy it myself. I know I'm not the target audience, but again, it's just for me when I'm looking at horrors like Hollywood horror and things like that, I'm always expecting the jump scares what we were talking about. That's what I'm expecting. And obviously Insidious did have jump scares like that, but I enjoyed the lore behind the story as well. And that's
I think with the difference with Insidious was that the jump scares weren't fake jump scares; they were genuinely scary jump scares.
Yeah, definitely. And the background behind it, but there's again with a lot of your sort of longer films as well. There's a lot of background sort of things that tie everything in, which is what I like about it. It's not just throw that on there and see what happens.
It is something that I enjoy to do. Is when I'm doing my bigger project, is I like to try and create a world in which that is taking place.
Yeah.
It's just to sort out the finer details then. If you've got like just a world to mind, any sort of nuances and such, I would find flow easier. I like to think I don't make movies, so I can't say that is the case. But I can definitely agree that it doesn't feel like there's a start like with the Baylock residents. It's fresh to mind. It's not until later in the film it's explained. Like she mentions earlier in the film, there was a bombing. She had a concussion. Sorry, but you don't really go into too much about it, and then later on in the film, it's like, oh yeah, I place the bombing and whatnot at the time due to the war. I'm like, okay, cool. I like that. Like you brought me forward. You posed the question. You didn't clear it up right there and then, which is what I was expecting, what normally does, and it's just later on you just slip it back in, rather than just pointing out, oh, by the way, yeah, it's not a flashback or anything like that. It was just brought up in conversation, which is good. A nice little finesse I liked.
So would you say that when it comes to writing, do you design sort of like the world itself first, or the sort of dimension what you're writing it in, and then look at the characters and then what's going to happen, or what's your process?
I think before I write anything, I like to try and make sure that I've got the ending down.
Mm-hmm.
I find that if I haven't got the ending, I find it much more difficult to write to, and then sort of like have the ending and then fill in the blanks. And then obviously throughout the different drafts, different ideas will develop, and be like, oh, that'd be a really good sort of backstory for that character. And then, and I think as well that as I'm writing, I do sort of have a bit of a backstory for each character. I never actually write it down, but if any of the actors wish to have a backstory, I can reel it off and write an essay for each character if needs be.
Any characters, anybody you've had acting for, you required that? Do you feel? So
A couple of
for me
times.
personally, I think I'd love that, to just fully immerse myself with the character, to become one
Some
with
method
the character,
actors then,
as you would
isn't it?
say. Yeah,
Method.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably how I'd do it if I was acting. I like to think, and if you're able just to do that real quick, that's well, it's not just like you're just throwing tried and tested sort of technical skills and whatnot, and effects at something, just hoping it comes out right, which just tends to be how I create everything I do.
Yeah. No, I think I have had a couple of actors that, because it's a funny thing, because actors have their own way of acting. So some people prefer to they'll just go off the script and they're fine with that, and there's a lot of famous actors that do that, and it comes out absolutely fine. Then there's other actors that prefer to have and know as much information as possible, so that when they react to a certain situation, they know why they're reacting to that situation. There might be something in their past that is triggering them to act in that certain way, and it can bring a believable reaction to screen.
How do you prefer your actor? Medium rare,
On time.
Do you find that you work better with actors that prefer to do it a certain way?
Do you know what? I like working with actors that with all different that like to do it their own way, like to do it with the backstory. As long as they're not divas. I mean, I've worked with a few people that have been real divas with the way that they've when they come to set and things like that, and it's just I haven't got the time or the patience.
Your expectations are just too much.
Yeah, and I'm just like, right, you're acting in my film. Okay, you're not in Hollywood.
To out-diva them.
Like, you're not in Hollywood. Cut the crap. You're not all that, because you're still acting in low-budget films. So, sorry, I've got the dog wanting to like attention.
Mr.
It's like
Sniff.
a tail just keeps coming up.
So have you ever thrown anyone off set then?
I've never thrown anyone off set, but I have basically told them that I wouldn't work with them again, and a shoot has been cancelled after the first day.
Wow.
There was one person that I worked with, and me and one of the directors said, I'm not working. Well, actually, one of the actors said to me, I will not work with them again. And I said, no, I don't blame you. I think they've been very unprofessional, and the attitude towards everyone was just abysmal. And then I said to them later that evening, I said, I'm cancelling the shoot. It won't go ahead.
Oh, wow.
Jeez.
So just completely...
You're usually quite a chill guy as well, from what I remember. So it must have been a...
Hey, when I get on film mode, I can be quite cutthroat.
I suppose you'd have to be. Get it the way you want it to appear on screen.
Sometimes it takes some wrangling of the actors as well, because they're after a long day they become so complacent and they want to joke about stuff, and you're like, you got a schedule to keep, and that's when you have to crack the whip and start shouting.
So you've cancelled some shoots. Is there any been? Sorry, let me get my words out properly. Has there ever been any shoots or films that you've actually produced that you've, I wouldn't say regretted, but kind of wish that things had gone differently, or
Yeah, yeah.
you don't have to name them because I don't want to sort of like fire dislikes that way. But I just want to explain like your process and what you didn't like. Probably pick the worst one for you, and just see how a director kind of thinks about these things and what's the
there was
process.
there was one film that I made, and it was like it was meant to be the final in this trilogy that I was creating of these short films, and it was no fault of the actor involved. It just when it came down to like the editing and things like that, it was just I put it out there. Just I didn't even do a big announcement of it on Facebook like I normally do. I just put it out there, and it's like whoever wants to watch this will find it, you know. And then after a few months, I was like, I can't have this on my channel. It's just not good. So I ended up taking it down and hiding it. And then the actor messaged me was like a few years later, and I said to me, "What happened to the film on YouTube?" I just had to come clean and say, "I'm sorry, I took it down. It just wasn't how I was expecting it to go."
Say YouTube put a copyright strike on it. That'd been sorry.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
what I'd have
no,
said.
yeah.
We got copyright strike. It is no more.
I remember,
But
like, I remember you
yeah,
said that for any future content we make
Yeah.
together that YouTube might want to shut down, Luke. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm trying to think. There has been other times. I mean, there's been films that I've made, and then the actors were just not very good,
Hmm.
and I've just sort of cringed after it and gone, "Wow, I wish I had time to like. I wish I'd taken more time to sort of look at the show reel, or just had a bit more gumption to think, yeah, they weren't right for the role." But I think at the time when I was making these films, I didn't have like a pool of actors to pick from. So it was,
Yeah.
whoever was interested, it was like, yeah, okay, yeah, come on board, So um,
I remember you asking me to be an extra once. One of your OG zombie type flicks.
I don't remember.
It was a while ago. You said you wanted to because I just started the dreads, and you're like, oh, I could. That would look so good if I could just zombify you up with your hair and stuff. Like, I don't want to put anything in my hair. I don't want to put any gel in it to stick it out. I can't do it, mate.
So do you have a sort of like an agency of actors now? Then is it sort of like you
um,
put the feelers out there and somebody does the running for you, or
it's still me, myself, and I that deals with everything
right? Okay.
most of the time. Um, Actors there's a few communities on Facebook for like Midlands
Hmm.
acting community or filmmaking community, and if I've got a new project coming up, then I'll usually post in that. It's getting more difficult as I'm getting older, though, to sort of get these people to work for free. I know that's really bad to say, but
Yeah. Yeah.
unfortunately, the stage that still that I'm at, I don't have an abundance of money to give out to people to be in the films. I mean, they get fed on set, and expenses are covered if we're going to be sort of like a lot of traveling is involved. But as I'm getting older, and I think, and people think you're a 30 odd year old guy making films, you should have some money, surely. Or they assume I've got money because I've got films distributed, which is not the case at all. I've had some actors talk about me to each other and say that I'm taking advantage of other actors because I have money, like a bankload of money, because I've got films distributed. And unfortunately, that's not
Mm.
the reality of it.
I could see how like people would make that assumption. Um, you have the ability to make a film. Surely you must have money, but people don't really count passion when they think about these things, do they? They just assume, well, there's got to be money in it for you. That's why you're doing it, right? Like,
Yeah,
so why would you do it if there's no money? Well, because I'm passionate about it.
yeah,
Um,
exactly.
and people don't quite pick up on that all the time,
I,
anyway.
I think the thing is with reviews as well, especially for films that have been distributed, because people see my film on Amazon Prime and think, "Oh, this film's been distributed. It's on Amazon Prime. This must be a like multi-thousand-pound budget, like 100,000 or whatever," and then they review it in a way of that and compare it to a Hollywood film of millions, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
dude, this was made for £1,000, not
Yeah.
50,000 or 100,000. It was £1,000. It's like Unholy was made, I think, between 800 and £1,000. Unholy was made on, and some of the people that have left reviews on it on Amazon are just like, think it was made for an astronomical amount of money, and so they call it out for that. And it's like, no, it wasn't.
Yeah, it's with music especially. I see it. There are people at different levels, but before I got into music as much as I am now, I just assumed that, like, if I am able to hear your music anywhere, if your music's out there for me to listen to, then you must have money. You must have made money from it. Otherwise, it's not getting to my ears. But I obviously I don't know how deep it is and what it's like that with movies, but I can imagine it's the same thing. People just
I'd probably
assume
say that people probably think so, maybe even more, because people think, and rightly
it
so,
costs more to make a film than
yeah,
it does to
and
make
there's so many
music.
people involved in making a film,
Mm.
and like Unholy, for the first few days, I was the crew. I was the director, I was the cameraman, I was the sound guy. I mean, I wish there was a camera on the first day of filming of me trying to maneuver a camera on a dolly whilst also holding a boom mic.
That's the
Was
passion, mate. That is the passion
Yeah.
right there, isn't it?
and it's just incredible when people think that, oh yeah, well, you've got this, that, and the other, and I'm like, nope, just me. I mean, in past years on other films that I've done, I've had a bit more help from a few people, like my father-in-law, Lee. He often helps along with some expenses and comes along and helps with like booming and running actors around and things like that. And sometimes I think like there's no way I'd get through like a day's shoot without that one extra pair of hands to help.
Yeah.
Because it just honestly because I could set up a mic off screen on like a hid up somewhere, and that would be fine. We could get through the shoot. But each time you cut and you change in angles, I have to then physically take that mic down. I have to maneuver, and it takes so much time to then reset a shoot. And if I've got one extra pair of hands just to hold that boom and can freely move around the set with me, it speeds things up like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah. No, I get that.
Better workflow.
You want everything to be as efficient and in place as possible. Mine's really small scale on a podcast, but as you know from like 3 hours ago, we were prepping everything. I wish I was disorganized usually, but we got everything where we wanted it, and I've got all of this that you can see now is all live. So the only thing that goes in after is references. So I can see Ryan, I can see Mr. Stitch, and myself, and then the background which is floating around and things like that. So mine's very, very small scale, but I feel you.
Yeah,
I do feel you.
I think the thing is as well is that, especially if I'm working with somebody new that hasn't sort of been with me for a few years, that knows the scale of which that I work. If I have someone new come along that I've never worked before, and then I'm working solo on that day, they must think like, what kind of like cheap ass shoot is this? I remember there was one shoot that I did a couple of years ago, and there was every actor involved I'd never worked before. This was the first time I'd ever worked with any of them. There was 3 actors, and I had somebody supposed to be coming to record audio for me, so to hold the boom mic, etc. And they didn't turn up, and I looked like, because I was like, oh, maybe they'll show up in a set. Maybe we'll just wait, And time was getting on. These actors had things to do, and I must have looked like the most incompetent person. And then when I called them out on it, like the person that was supposed to show up, they said to me, well, I did offer my time for free to you, So you shouldn't really be getting so upset that I didn't turn up. You weren't going to pay me. I was like, well, you committed, regardless of being paid. You said you were going to be there, and
Yeah.
I remember feeling like the worst filmmaker. Like I looked like a Mickey Mouse Club sort of filmmaker that day. It was awful.
Anybody that gets to any respectable, if that's what you want to call it, but that recognized level of anything, of any kind of creation, you speak to any of them, or anybody that I've seen interviews by and whatnot, spoken to myself that I feel is successful, they all say that I started off with, well, the stories from nowadays are going to be I just started off with my phone, filming stuff and my friends, and then it took off from there, and and that's real, like for pretty much everybody. I can't think of. I'm not a big film buff. I'm not a big actor buff or director buff, but I don't know like the story of anybody that claims to have just gone straight in at the top. Nobody's got the big equipment and the fancy software, and even all the knowledge usually when they get started with this. That's the point. Like how much do you feel like there's still more for you to learn, or you know what you need to know to achieve what you want? So you visualize a film you want in your head. Do you think you're at the level to actually output that now, or is there still knowledge gaps stopping you from getting there?
I feel like a bit of both, really, because my next film that I want to do, that I'm writing at the moment, is set in the 17th century, and it's really difficult because of the language barrier of Old English and things like that. So there's a lot of sort of creative writing that has barriers that I still have to break through, and writer's block. Like a lot of people know how to break through writer's block, and it takes me forever to do. Costume designs and things like that. That's another thing that I enjoy, sort of the research, but would prefer so much more if there was someone on set to help that was dedicated to that, so that I don't have to learn another trick.
Yeah, I can obviously for different reasons can appreciate you start doing one thing and you're like, oh, if I could do this, I'll make it better. And then you realize once you start learning that usually this is a specialized thing that somebody does, like that's all they do. But you're here trying to do that as well as the other stuff and everything else, and before you know it, it's like jack of all trades, master of none. But you have to be a jack of all trades to get the final product. Unless you're able to pay somebody straight off the bat to do it.
But I suppose it's sorry, carry on.
No, I was just going to say that. I mean, that's one thing that I feel like I've got enough knowledge that to put out a really high quality film, if I can get the right people on board that can take over the other duties so that I don't have to. So I don't have to learn anything new, like cinematography and things like that. I mean, I've got like the basics of cinematography down, but I would much prefer it if I could actually get somebody on set that can provide their knowledge and their speciality to make the film that much better without me having to substandard it.
Yeah, I can appreciate what you mean there, but it just must be madness because there's so much factors. I like to think now I know a bit enough about sound engineering to mix vocals, but you'd need to know that anyway, and then you've got visual stuff on top of that, and then you've got all the editing stuff on top of that. I mean, I recently come into color grading thinking that I'm a boss out here because I know how to turn, I know how to lift, I know how to use the lift dial and the gain dial. And I'm like, yeah, color correction's like a boss. And then I'm humbled by stuff like yours, where like I can see those techniques and then just stuff that I don't even know is techniques, but it's doing something. And I wouldn't even know how you've gone about to create that just that image, just the look on the screen as a whole, keeping it with the same theme. And you don't make it easy for yourself either with your visuals, do you? You like,
No, I
you
mean
do like
that's
the
one
old times,
thing.
don't you?
That is one thing that I try to do. Is like because now anyone with a camera is a filmmaker, and so there's massive competitions of filmmakers around. Even just in Nottingham alone, there's so many filmmakers. So all of these people are working their butts off to make something to put out there, and people are getting lost in the sea of creativity. So myself, I want to make something that's going to try and stand out. So I always try and push myself in setting a film in a certain era, like 1940s, 1970s, Victorian, and now with the 1600s one that I'm writing. So at least if I'm part of that big pool of people just in Nottingham of horror as well, because horror is obviously a huge genre that people do. At least I'm making something that's pushing my creativity and is going to hopefully stand out against this vast amount of other films that are being put out by local filmmakers.
Yeah.
So with that, have you got any sort of advice for any young whippersnappers that are up and coming or thinking about going into directing and or into just acting? Is there anything that you really
Just basically like put the time in, put the effort in. Don't think it's easy, because it's not easy. If you feel like you want to do this because you want to make money and you want to be famous, or it's not going to happen that way. You've got to know that there's years and years and years before you make any kind of money from doing this. It's not a quick fix of income. If you think, I want to make a film because I want to live in a mansion, well, you're living in a dream until you get a break, which is very rare. You've just got to keep at it. As someone said to me once, throw enough mud at the wall, eventually something will stick. So just keep plowing away, keep writing. If you want to film something, just go out and film it. It doesn't necessarily have to be a film. Go out and film nature stuff to get, go out down the local nature reserve and film stuff. At least then you'll have something to edit, so you'll get knowledge of the editing software. I mean, that's something I used to love doing, is just filming anything, just so that I had something to edit and play around with.
I really enjoy messing around with editing software. Every time I learn because there's so much stuff in these things, and every time you learn something new, it's such a and you apply it to a bit of film. And I like that effect. I did that. Seamless, mate. Seamless. Yeah, and all you did is like drag and drop something, but you know what that does now. So I can, and my stuff is just cut to cut. I might put a little blur transition in between two cuts. I feel like I'm a boss.
You feel like a proper professional though when you figure out all the shortcuts on the keyboard.
Oh yeah,
and especially if someone watches you as well, and you're like, oh, I don't even have to touch the mouse. I can just click, click, click.
Yeah. I love it. It's horrible though when you use a couple of different softwares and they don't have the same shortcuts. So sometimes I'm hitting B for a blade tool, and then in the editor, in audio editing, it's Alt and C.
I'm sure they
smashing
do that on
B. Like, why isn't it cutting? Why isn't it cutting?
They do it on purpose, right?
It is infuriating how something like, because I use Adobe, so the shortcuts in Premiere don't tally up with shortcuts that are in, say, After Effects or Audition, or commands. They don't carry across, and I'm just baffled by this. Like, why?
Just to
You're
make it more
making my life
specialized
harder.
Is to make it like something that people have to specialize in to really get efficient with a game, and it's just a little bit of a barrier. Perhaps you can't be good at all of these things. You need to pick one and stick to it.
That's honestly the reason why I've always stuck with Sony Vegas. Always, since my old trying to be a quick scoper and joining FaZe Clan to now. I've done is upgraded the version, and I think I'm on 14 now, so I've not even upgraded that much, but I was on like Sony Vegas Pro 9 or 10 back in the day, and I just never changed from there.
Are you happy with Premiere?
Yeah, I mean, I feel I've had a lot of bugs that I've had to sort of iron out with Premiere, but a lot of the times I usually find out because something on my computer doesn't like talking to Premiere, so then I have to find out what it is that's crashing it. But on the whole, I do like how everything is cloud-based and it's easy to move across So if I need to edit audio from Premiere, it can just go straight into Audition, and I can work through that and then send it back to Premiere for a much better outcome than if it was just all in-house. I used to love using Final Cut Pro, but when they introduced Final Cut Pro 10, they just ruined it, and I've never forgiven them, and I've never been back.
You tried to get me on Vegas, didn't you, Lukey?
Yeah, well, I just say the
I just
thing.
don't want to put any money up. It's also I went with the free stuff.
The weird thing about Vegas is, so as you know, Ryan, I took a bit of a hiatus from YouTube and uploading because I had sort of like an epiphany that I wasn't enjoying what I was doing. I was doing it because it was trending. So I took like, I think, what was it, 6 years out?
Wow.
Completely not doing anything that to do with it. I focused on getting a job, a proper job, a career. And now I'm at that level now.
A 9 to 5. It's not a proper job, right? You mean a 9 to 5? Yeah.
No, I mean I was doing part-time work, and I meant like getting full-time.
Yeah.
But then I ended up going to uni halfway through that. But still, I was, just on my hiatus, like not doing anything to do with YouTube. I was only doing it to try and get money and get big, and just doing that grind. So, and then I've come back and I'm doing things that I enjoy now, which is great. I think we spoke about it earlier, and I've forgotten the point that I was going to make because we were just talking for so long. No, so with Vegas,
Yeah.
I'm back on now. I checked out my old channel where I used to do Vegas tutorials and taught myself again how to use Vegas again. 6 years is
do
like
your own tutorials.
Yeah, so I was like, thanks, past me, and it was like, no worries, future me. Like, it's really weird, but that's how it worked out. So
that's brilliant.
Yeah, and that's just Vegas. And as soon as I sort of like watched the video, I was like, oh, I remember this, and then it became muscle memory again.
Comes back.
Yeah, so that's the reason why I told you to have a go on Vegas. But everybody has their own little niche that they enjoy.
I suppose once you learn one, you just learn that one, don't you? Really, essentially, they all do the same thing in different ways with slightly different features. Is there any? Is it so? It's just Final Cut Pro and Premiere. That's all you've used, Anthony.
Yeah. Okay. I used Final Cut for years, but then honestly, when they upgraded it to Final Cut Pro 10, it crashed constantly. You would import a clip and it'd crash. I mean, you could find so many different forum threads online about how terrible it became, and I had to find another way of editing. And I thought, well, everyone seems to go on about Premiere, so I decided to give that a go. And I've stuck with Premiere now for, 7 years or more.
I might have to give it a go. YouTube really wants me to try it. Apparently, I can't click on anything about being told about Premiere before it plays.
It is like the leading software, I think. One of the leading softwares now, and especially because it's now Creative Cloud and you can pay per application. It's not that expensive. It's like for Premiere Pro, it's like 20 quid a month. I mean, what's 20 quid? If it's something you enjoy doing. I spend
more money than that on Wish each month on crap. So
Ryan, not Wish.
Oh yeah, I'm a Wish guy. I buy all the nerdy anime themed stuff from.
Do you end up in a weird rabbit hole of like you'll be looking at something like a pillow, and then next thing down there's sex toys, and you're like, how has my feed got to this?
I'm not one of those guys. I missed out on all that. People were getting like pictures of like Iraqi soldiers and stuff like on Wish. I never got any of that because it knows already. Like if it's nothing to do with anime or manga, it's no point in giving it to this guy. Like if it's not a costume, if it's not a statue or a pack of stickers, he doesn't want it. So don't bother.
Honestly, I've been on Wish before. I've given up with Wish, and I'll be just searching the most innocent thing that you can think of, like Studio Ghibli, like buying something for Lewis's birthday, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's cool. Click on that, and then next thing I've got this ad for like the most horrendous sex toys, and I'm like, what are you marketing to?
The worst I get is like the see-through men's underwear. That always makes me feel like really sort of bad about myself. I'm like, oh, is that Is that what it's supposed to look like? Oh.
So,
It's like, you're not making me want to. I don't think I'm going to be able to feel them like he does. So I'll not get those.
So I had quite a creepy experience with Wish. So I've never used it, never had an account on there or anything.
Okay.
And when I was living at my old house, I got a delivery from Wish, and it was for a guy whose name I can't remember. It was like James Green or something, but it had my mobile number on it and my address, which was just weirded out. And it was this Chinese little booklet telling me all different types of seeds, right?
Yeah.
The day after, I got another one, different name, same mobile number, same address. Another little Chinese booklet's telling me different types of fruit. And this went on for like 2 weeks, with every day I'd get a different little Chinese booklet with a random name, but my number and my address. So obviously somebody was playing a trick on me, but that was just weird.
That would spook me the hell out.
Yeah.
I would have gone paranoid, mate. Trust me.
Did you become a specialist in these sort of this field? Did you start planting loads of seeds and
No, I
fruit?
just had more things to burn in my.
It was your opportunity to become a self-sufficient.
Yeah,
I
maybe.
mean, who knows where the podcast might be right now if you learn those skills? You're probably doing podcasts on Chinese botanics, if that's a thing. It's been over an hour now, I've noticed, and we haven't asked what I feel is the most obvious question.
It's because we're not finished yet, right? But
No, but I'm not saying we're finished. You don't have to say the most obvious. It's probably what I would have started with. What is your favourite film, Anthony?
My favourite film.
Yeah.
It's a hard one because there are so many that I like, and then I usually give an answer, and then like an hour later I think, oh no, I really like that film so much more.
Yeah.
But I think over the years, one of my favourite horror films has got to be John Carpenter's The Fog.
Yeah.
Please tell me one of you've seen it.
Uh-huh.
I know I haven't seen a film called Fog to my recollection. Was there a game?
I think you're thinking of The Mist.
I've got a picture of some guy and like it's just about to head into some fog, and it's not to no, never mind, no, because I know which one is that. This is the one I'm thinking of is set somewhere where it's really snowy and they're at like some weird lab type scenario. No, don't worry.
You're thinking about The Thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Never mind, wrong one.
There's something.
John Carpenter. But the original version of The Fog from 1980, it's just brilliant. It was, by filmmaker standards, it was low budget. The atmosphere in that film is just fantastic. Even now watching it, it's just everything a horror film should be. It's not full of jump scares. It's not full of gore. It is literally atmosphere to the tens all the way through. It is brilliant.
So do you feel it's influenced you majorly at all in what you do now, or is it just something that you enjoy in the medium?
I wouldn't say it's probably influenced me in much of storytelling because it's very different. Oh, I say that is ghosts, but it's different to my style of storytelling. But I think something to take away from it is definitely how it was made for very little money and accomplished so much over the years. And saying that, another film which I'd say has influenced me a lot was the Blair Witch Project.
Very good film.
I've seen that once. It was quite recent, and just because I avoid anything while it's popular, But yeah, that is
just
I'm one of those
Ryan in
guys.
it. Yeah.
But yeah, that is a standout. So it was one of the first sort of like mockumentary type things I'd ever seen, and I think for that more so than it being scary or whatnot stood out for me. But I feel it was a very sort of well made. I can picture like just stills of it in my head to this day.
It's just so many people hate it because it doesn't have a payoff in the film. But the thing that people can't understand is that this film was made for like $70,000, which is just nothing in like, and it became one of the highest grossing films of all time because of that fact. It was made for nothing, and it definitely made me probably want to be a filmmaker from watching that growing up. So it's like, wow, these people can make such an amazing film with a video camera.
Mm.
You know, I think that really,
I was gonna say, yeah, I can definitely appreciate that sort of that feeling where you oh, I sort of I know of how they've done it, and it's made it accessible almost. It made
yeah.
filmmaking appear accessible. Yeah,
I
I could
think
see
the
how the Blair Witch Project might do that actually.
Yeah.
I think the other fantastic thing about it was the fact that they managed to keep it so elusive for so long that was this real, was it fake? And I bet you the probably people today they probably still think it's real,
Mm.
which is crazy. But it's they had so many amazing things going for them that they managed to utilize, like the fact that the internet was still really early stages. I read a book last year during the first lockdown, and it was called 8 Days in the Woods, and it was basically start to finish of how they made the film. It was written by a fan that managed to interview everyone involved, and the information on it is just incredible. It just makes me so jealous, but in a good
Matt,
way.
one of yours will get there, mate. Don't worry, I can see it. I got a good sense of these things.
He's already had
It's
1.3
something-
million views. He's already had his break.
No, but I don't
Well-
want people to be questioning whether Anthony's stuff is real or not. You know?
Well, the annoying thing is about the Haunting of Baylock is, yeah, it's got 1.3 million views. I've not seen a penny from that film because it's got copyrighted music in it.
Ah,
If I'd known when I released that it was going to be so popular, I would have got original music.
do you know how many
Because
people
I
I
would-
know that have that issue though? Like,
Yeah.
how many people I've known? Like, some of my older stuff on the other channel when I was monetized on there, it's copyright, and I'm still getting claims today on a channel that I can't even access.
Yeah.
I have no access to it anymore.
I've had a few instances where people have tried to copyright music in my films, and I've had to basically fight them on it and say, no, this is royalty-free music, so jog on.
Yeah,
that's mad.
it's amazing.
I've had
That's
people-
mad people just trying to coattails it.
Yeah.
Oh, just people trying to, because basically when people prove that something in your video belongs to them, like music, you can keep the video up, but any money that would be made on that video will go to them instead.
Yeah.
Or you can mute it, which is just so off-putting. I can imagine it.
Yeah. And I've had it where then once, if you dispute it, there is a chance that if YouTube think you're taking the mick by disputing it and saying claiming it to be yours, they can then shut your channel down.
Yeah,
And-
give you a strike.
Yeah, and at the stage that I'm at, I don't want any negativity to go towards my channel. It's hard enough to make any kind of money whatsoever from it anyway. But I've got no strikes on my channel. I've got some copyright claims on a couple of videos, but there's no strikes.
Yeah.
I've put a few strikes on people's channels from stealing my films and then trying to claim them as their own.
Yeah.
Seriously?
Yeah.
That's how you know you've made it, right?
Yeah, I know. Seriously, I was so happy when I found this. I found this tab on YouTube that I didn't know existed, and it was called copy. It was just a tab that came up with saying copyright, and you click that, and it tells you how many videos of yours have been re-uploaded, matching your upload. So if someone wanted to take one of my videos and review it, it would tell, and use just clips of my film in the review, it would tell me what percentage of my film is in their video. And a few of the times it's like 100% of your video has been re-uploaded. I'm like, right, okay, we're on it.
Okay. Yeah, that might explain why, because we did a reaction video to some stuff once, and it was just like little snips of stuff, but it's only the world's most renowned anime. So obviously it was picked up. I'm like, we used hardly any of it, and it's really small on the screen. How do they know?
I
But
think
it
if
must
you
be
would
like some sort of
put
bot.
a fair usage on that, you probably would have got away with it in the description.
I didn't know nothing
See-
about it. I just saw the big sort of like yellow mark next to the
Yeah.
video, and I was like, I got scared. I hear that these YouTube guys are C-bombs and they're out here destroying all content, so I just left it as it was.
Yeah, there is part of YouTube where if you're using copyrighted material for fair usage, like you're reviewing it or you're talking about it, you're not just re-uploading it to YouTube, then you can keep that and I think make money from it. But the thing that annoys me is when people will take something, say it's fair usage, and they're not. They're just uploading it for money. I've
Yeah.
had people upload my stuff, and I've got them to take it down through a copyright strike, and they've emailed me and said, "But we're using this in fair usage policy. You cannot do this." I'm like, "But you're not using it for any other reason than to upload it yourself. You haven't done anything to the video."
Yeah.
I'm like,
I
"Go be
get.
creative. Go make your own stuff."
Well, there's a whole sort of, it's like a genre now, isn't it? Like reaction videos,
Yeah.
Yeah,
and they call it these commentary videos, where they're just basically just riding off somebody else. They're not really reviewing it. They're not really critiquing anything. They're not really discussing anything. They're like, this happened. I saw this on the internet. Here it is.
All right,
And
Ryan.
that was
I've
that. Thank you
uploaded
very
2.
much. Huh?
What are you going on about? I've done 2 reactions on this channel.
Yeah, no, but you're not
Stop it.
it's just a reaction video. I see people. I haven't seen yours. Don't worry, so I can't comment on yours. But I have seen many where it's just like, yeah, so I found this, and then just present a video, and it just takes up the whole screen, and it's that other
Oh
video.
yeah, we don't do that.
And then it ends, and they're like, yeah, and that was that. I think it was really good. So, and that was it. Video done. I'm like,
Yeah.
you just added like 5 bits of seconds of content at the start and at the end of that, which isn't yours. It's not fair. But people appear to be sort of, well, I don't know if people are making money off of that sort of stuff, but it's happening more and more often in the depths of YouTube. And when trends take off, it's usually because people are gaining from it somehow.
yeah, yeah.
So, well, we're about an hour and 15 now, aren't we, guys? Something like that. Yeah.
1:10:29.
1:10:29. So there's a lot. Is there anything else that you'd like to say, Ryan or Ant?
I'd just like
Mr.
to know. So you've mentioned it. You're working on a movie. Is that likely to be the next thing we see from you, or have you got other stuff already in the works or other plans that might come to fruition sooner?
I would like to get a few shorts made because I feel like in recent years my short films have sort of fallen by the waistline.
I was going to mention that actually in the podcast. I used to make quite a lot of short films and show reels and stuff.
I think
Not so
because I've focused a lot on feature films in the last few years, my short films haven't really been a thing for me. But I'd like to sort of get back into making them, just because it's fun to just go out, film something in a couple of days, spend a week or 2 editing, and then content for YouTube really. So I've got a couple of short film ideas that I would really like to get underway as and when we're allowed, annoyingly. But I think one of my biggest projects to date will probably be Beldum, it's called. And so I've never done it before, but I want to sort of look into crowdfunding as well.
Ooh, I'll definitely back you on that, bro. 100%. Let me know. 100%.
Thanks. It's a budget. The budget I've got in mind for it is like so far from anything I've ever asked for, and it's just scary. Like, what if no one backs me and it ends up being a failure, and then I look stupid? But
I've always been happy to back you, bro. Always.
I appreciate it, Ryan. I really do. It's but the smallest amount anyone can give, they don't realize how much it can help. Like £5 can pay for like one person's travel expense or something, So anything like that. But with Belladum, I want to try and raise about 10 grand.
Okay.
I've got to build a set because it's set in the 1600s, and it's basically about this couple, Isabel and Joseph, and they're unable to have a baby. And every time she gets pregnant, she gives birth, but it's stillborn. And in a moment of sort of desperation, there's a witch that kind of offers her a chance to have a baby, which she accepts, and she has this baby given to them. And the husband is furious about it. The fact that in this day and age, she took a help from a witch. So he reports her to a witch hunter who sets out to capture the witch, and the witch asks for help from Isabel. but Isabel refuses to help in fear of she'd be hung too. So both of them
No.
have damned this witch to death, and the witch states that when she dies, that basically she curses them both. And after she dies, all hell breaks loose on the pair of them, and what was supposed to now be a happy little family. So
Nice. I like what I'm hearing. It sounds like it could definitely have some moments that would pique my interest. Yes.
I feel it's going to be
Childbirth.
it's everything's going to be quite, I don't want to say graphic, but realistic, and because of the time it takes place with like the torture of the witch and the childbirth, and how she gets, because one scene for the how she eventually has the baby, which I can't wait to film, but I need to try and find some people that are happy to be naked on screen. So the witch has all like this nude people, like spiritual, earthy people, and the witch basically cuts her open and takes this fetus out of her that grows, and that's how she eventually then is given her baby. I want everything to be sort of like
Boy.
on
Oh.
film, not real, but you know what I mean. Like,
Yeah. I'm just like, gee, I just like I've got, because of the time it's set and everything, I've got like the whole pagan vibe
yeah,
going
yeah.
on, and that sort of ritual type sort of thing. Yeah. There's the images in my head already. I'm like, okay, that's big.
So I think one, because of I need to pay someone to create some costumes. I've got to pay someone to build like a hovel for them to live in some woods. So I know someone that could probably build a hovel for me. It's not going to be cheap. I'd say for what I want, it's probably going to be a couple of grand at least. It doesn't need to be anything too fancy. It's not like anyone's going to be living in it afterwards. Just as long as it's enough for it to stay up and stand for as long as we need it to do, and then tear it down afterwards. So I feel like a realistic goal of 10,000 on the crowdfunding would be something that is, I'd be able to create this really good product from it.
Well, I'm definitely happy to do whatever I can to help. But what might help, right? What you might be able to do to raise some money is, why don't you sell steampunk style Nerf guns, mate?
Well, that was something that I was sort of doing at one point. Was it last year or the year before? But,
I remember seeing some pictures, bro, and they were insane, mate. They were insane. Actually, you know what? I've got a couple Nerf guns knocking around. I might actually send them down to you to get done, if you don't mind. Like, that would be cool.
Absolutely. Honestly, they're so much fun to do.
I'll knock some pictures up here, and then there'll be an email address for you to inquire.
Speaking of which, like, there's one that is like lingering around. Bear with me just a sec. Like, obviously, Ryan, you can't see it at the moment, but you will do when you see the edit. It never got finished, but
wow.
Luke could probably see that.
Wow. I'm going to react anyway, just so it looks like. Here you go.
This one. So it never got finished, but
still looks good.
Thank you for the fun to do.
It makes you just want to have one for no reason, doesn't it?
Yeah, I've never been into it, but I want that one.
Yeah. You see what I mean? Yeah, I did decide I wanted one, and it just completely slipped my mind. So yeah, now that's back to mind. I'm definitely going to get you to. I can see it in the corner of my eye which one I want to get you to do as well. Yeah.
Jack of all trades, clearly.
Master of none.
Exactly.
Right. So with that one, I think we have just gone over time now. But I really honestly appreciate you jumping in, and it's been fantastic having a chat with you, especially over these past couple of months. So obviously this has been in the works since Christmas, pretty much, hasn't it?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd love for you to come back again at some point. That'd be amazing. If you need any help with anything, let us know.
Definitely.
We are here, and we do enjoy your stuff. So anything
It's
you'd
been
like
great
to see?
speaking to you again, bro. It really has.
Yeah, you too, Ryan. And if you decide to do another episode, a spooky wooky episode about ghost stories, hit me up, because I have tons and tons of stories.
Oh, don't tell him that, mate. Don't tell him that. He'll have you back every week.
I'll
Trust
see you
me,
in
I know
2
I was
weeks.
there.
Honestly, some crazy stories.
No worries. Thank you once again. And yeah, links to everything will be in the description. I do recommend you check out The Haunted of Baylock Residence, because when I get that 1.3 million views to 1.3 million and one. So yeah, go check out some of his stuff that I'd recommend. Dark Light, fantastic. Sleep Tight, all these short films are great. And the Cry of the Magpie as well, great. So yeah, anything from you, Ryan?
No, man. Thank you for letting me back on.
Dreads Mango.
Oh yeah, don't forget to vape Dreads Mango.
Yeah.
There you go, you're happy.
Use code Sleepy for 13%
Oh,
off.
yeah. And don't forget, guys, if you use code Sleepy at www.theesigshop.uk, you get 13% off TGWD merchandise and e-liquid and concentrates. There you go. It's the first time I've ever plugged it, isn't it?
Yeah. Just glad that you did.
There
So,
you go. Great.
thank you once again, and take care.
Peace.
Thank you.